Hello everyone! Hopefully we can get some lovely artists to join us. Today I will be going over this Goldfinch Grizaye drawing kit. I love these kits and I think that they are super fun to do alongside friends or just to follow. I do have classes that you can follow along if you're interested and you want to learn how to draw these birds. I have in-depth classes over at Grizaye.com. You can check out what other kits they have. This is the Goldfinch pair. So here we've got two beautiful little birds, and there's these pine cones and branches that have a lot of texture. So this is a perfect drawing kit if you're looking to really kind of fine-tune your skills and just improve your rendering and detail. So it's a really fun one. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you what's inside. So here, I'm gonna pull this out, and we have a lovely set of colored pencils in these beautiful colors, and this is your color guide. So you're going to see where all these colors are going to be used, along with some instructions as well. So I'm just going to go through this kit starting from the beginning, and you can just, whatever you're working on, I'd love for you to draw alongside me or just enjoy watching. It's really fun. We've got some close-up photos so that you can better see these birds up close, and this pine cone, just loads of texture. And here's our beautiful reference. So I'm really excited to draw this today. So let's go ahead and get started. I have the reference at the bottom corner so you can see that and follow along with me. Going to take our pencils, which there's 12 pencils in each kit, which is really nice because you can just right off the bat, you have all the materials you need, which is a set and a nice little pencil sharpener. Always comes in handy. And then we've got a sample of the paper and a sticker. So yeah, those are really handy to just have everything that you need. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these out of here. I think these colors are so pretty. And I'm drawing this Grizaye kit specifically because it's summer. A lot of people are looking for something to draw, and you don't want to look for reference photos. You just want something that's right there for you. And this kit is on sale. So if you are interested in getting this kit, it is only $24.99 on Grizaye.com and free shipping. So if you are interested, you can scan that code in the corner or just go to the website. The link is in the description. So I'm going to bring you in a little bit closer here as I draw. So I think I'm going to start with this bird on the left, and I always like to sharpen my pencils before I get started, so I've just got this little container to catch all of my pencil shavings. I'm going to go ahead and sharpen my pencils, and I think I'm going to start with these colors here. Of course, it's always good to have your white, and I just like to have all my pencils sharpened right off the bat. Just, it makes things easier as I go. Thank you for joining me. Please let me know where you're watching from, and if you have any art projects you're working on, I would love for you to draw along with me. So, just sharpening my pencils. I'm going to sharpen this pink and white and gray. And that will be the colors I'll use for the beak. I'm just making this easier for myself. I'd love to know what you are working on. I'll also be using this embossing tool, and I'll show you how that works too in here in a second. If you don't use an embossing tool, you are definitely going to want to start after watching. So this drawing kit is only on sale till this Sunday. So if you want it, go ahead and get it while it is $24.99 free shipping. It's so much fun. Just going ahead and getting all these pencils sharpened. If you are a subscriber and you've tried a Grizaye kit before, I'd also love to know. Do you love the sound of a pencil sharpening or not so much? Kind of like it. I think it's satisfying. This little pencil sharpener works very well. I love these. Okay, now my pencils are nice and sharp, and look at that. Okay, and I'm going to put you in just a little closer. All right, so I'm going to start with this bird here. We're going to work on the face. I have here what is called an embossing tool or stylus. So we've got two ends, one for fine details and one that's a little more blunt. So what I'm going to do with this is go ahead and just mark the paper, and I'm just going to leave tiny indentions by pressing lightly. Now if you want this to be more noticeable, you can apply more pressure, but I'm just going to create these tiny little pencil marks, and this comes in handy for highlights or feathers, fur, anything that's got some texture. It's actually going to save you time because you'll see when I go back over with some color, those lines are going to stick out, and then I don't have to go back in and try to recreate that detail. It's kind of already done for me. Especially where the feathers overlap here, there's a big difference when you use this tool. And you can pick this up at Grizaye.com. They're very cheap, very affordable. And there's a couple different kinds you can get with different ends. There's some that come in sets. So I'm just going right here, applying medium pressure where these feathers overlap. Just right in these little details. You can see like the highlight of this beak. I'm gonna trace over that. And then I can go over it with dark colors, and you're not going to notice that. Like I can go over those lines, and it won't be a big deal because I'll have left that indentation in the paper. So now I'm going over these lines, and you know, it only takes a few minutes to do this, and it will actually save you time. So that's why I love this tool. Some people like to use artist knives to help create texture with colored pencils, and that's a great option too. It's totally up to your preference. So I would normally go over the whole piece with this, but I think I'm just gonna stick to this bird, and I'm also going to go in the highlights of the eyes. Just create some little texture here and there in these highlights. If you go on the outside, you don't have to worry about going outside of those lines. So it's really helpful. So I'm going to start out with lemon, and let's see, jasmine. So I'm going to use these two colors as my base, and I'm going to make sure I've got my handy dandy reference photo beside me. You can see that in the corner, but I'm going to be following this reference photo. I'm going to come in here, and with lemon, I'm going to very lightly start filling this in. I'm just going to use pretty light pressure to start. And I'm just going to fill in these light areas first, and then I'm actually going to go in with my shadows. Just going to lightly fill this in. So you might be wondering, well, why use a grisaille? What is the benefit? And you will see if you try it once what it can do for you. Because you've got this very lightly printed, grayed out image, but it's not like a grayscale coloring book. And that's the difference. You can layer colored pencil on this paper. This is Legion Stonehenge paper. Beautiful texture. Your colored pencils will layer right over it, so you actually have to be careful to not go in too hard right away, because these pencils are pigmented and this is a very faded image. So once you go on top, you don't see those details anymore, and it is quite amazing. So I'm just going to go over this very lightly. And this is just to get some sort of base. You go over these highlights a little bit with lemon. And because I'm using light pressure, I'm just holding the bottom of my pencil. I'm just gonna fill in these highlighted areas. And you're not gonna see a difference with that embossing tool yet until I layer some darker colors over it, but I'm just going to lightly get this base going. If you're not sure where to start with a piece, a lot of times I'll go in with the shadows first, but really just start anywhere. I like to also begin with the face because that is where the most detail is going to go into. Especially if I'm doing a piece from scratch, I want to make sure that I've got a good eye before I get too far into the piece sometimes. So I'm going to use brown to lightly go over this eye. Like I said, I'm just doing a base, and then I'll go in with more detail later. So these face details, I'm just lightly going to trace over that with this brown shade. And I'm not going to worry about making it perfect or getting the colors or tones just right yet. I'm just simply kind of marking these details in. Just like that. And I want to make sure I leave this white space. I want to preserve this because once we go on top of it, it's harder to get those highlights back. So I'm just using very light pressure, making sure my pencil is nice and sharp. I go in here using very light marks. And I'm going to go all the way to the beak here and also do this little line. It totally is, you know, up to your preference where you start with a piece. Like I usually kind of like to start with the face of the subject, and with the background I usually work left to right because I'm right-handed. That way I'm not kind of smudging as I go. I like to kind of go this way. So now I'm just going to take this brown, and right where I see these little shadows and lines, I'm just going to be tracing that. Like I said, I'm not worried about it being perfect right now. I just want to get this detail down. And just very lightly kind of holding my pencil midways to not apply too much pressure at once, but to just start to fill this in. I love drawing animals, it's my favorite, and I especially love getting a really good close-up of like an animal that you don't normally see very close, and then you can kind of study that animal and really start to see the detail that you don't normally get to see. I'm actually going to do another layer with this embossing tool because the feathers kind of crisscross here. You can see kind of the fluff of the bird. And when you use this tool in between layers, it really gives a nice detailed look. So I'm just going to do that, and then I can kind of come in here. And as I apply the layers, you'll see the difference. When I go over that, the texture's kind of already there. Let me know if you've ever drawn birds before. They are a very fun subject. I love drawing birds. And I think this piece, I have done this piece before using this kit. It was a while back when this kit came out, and I think that was the first time I really had drawn birds, and I really loved it. So I'm really excited to do it again. There's also a new hummingbird kit, and oh my goodness, that one is so fun. I love drawing wings, and I think it's so satisfying how they're layered, and it's just really nice. So I'm just gonna go in here and just fill this in. I'm just gonna flick my pencil up, and if you can see that, those lines are already filled in with that embossing tool, so I don't have to worry about overlapping, because if I just draw over it like this, you will see the texture on the edge. So I'm going to be using some black for this part as well, but I don't like to go too dark at first. See, in the past I really did not layer at all. I just went in, dug in with that color, and I definitely still am that way. I am heavy-handed. I like to really push my light and dark values. but I try to refrain a little bit, because when you can layer colors, it really does add some depth. I notice my art definitely has more depth now than before, where, you know, things just kind of look flat. And especially, you know, there's the big debate on whether or not to use black. And I definitely use black, whether that's paint, colored pencil, I will go for black. However, by layering some colors together, it can add more depth. So for these shadows, I'm using a touch of brown just to add some warmth so it's not as stark. When you think of these things, when you put more thought into your art, it actually comes out better. So as I'm going over these lines, still trying to be a little bit careful, but you can see that since I traced over them, you can still, they don't get completely covered. So that's the magic of that tool. And go around this wing. This paper is absolutely perfect because you can layer a lot. These lines, and I'm going to go ahead and sharpen my pencil again so that I keep that sharp point, because that is super helpful for doing these feathers and getting in those details. So by doing kind of the highlights and then the shadows, when I go back in with the midtones, it's really going to blend beautifully together. I want to make sure I get in these little bitty shadows, because it's really what's going to make it look realistic. You don't kind of get into these little kind of detailed areas with a sharp pencil, it can sometimes look a little bit flat. You can always go back in, but I like to just kind of cover everything with a base. And sometimes certain techniques vary piece to piece, but that's what I'm going to do for this one here. And I find if you get in the habit of starting with your shadows, it can allow you to, I guess, eliminate that blank page syndrome of like, oh, where do I start with this? You can just kind of dig into those shadows a bit. Makes everything else easier, as long as you leave room for highlights. And the midtones kind of do the rest of that work for you, blending everything together. Do a little bit more marks right here, making sure I don't leave out any of these details, because It's not hard for this grisaille to disappear, which is really awesome, but we want to make sure we don't lose any of that detail either. Alright, I think that looks really, really great. That's a good place to start. So now I'm going to take terracotta and I'm going to start warming up this brown here. And I'm just very lightly, now I'm holding it closer to the end of the pencil, and I'm just lightly warming this up a little bit. And so I'm going to mostly be hitting this area here. A little bit up here. I love this little area. So right now I'm just kind of studying my reference photo. I'm looking back and forth a lot to make sure that I'm getting as accurate as possible. And of course you never have to go exactly along with your reference photo, but for this kit I'm really wanting to allow it to help me to improve my skills a bit and my attention to detail and color matching. These are all things that these Grizaye kits are here to help you with. But you can take as many creative liberties as you want to. Going to add a little more warmth right in this area, right here. See, it's so easy to shade once you already have those shadows laid down. You can just kind of graze your pencil over it. That looks pretty good. Let's get a little bit in here, just a touch. But mainly, we're going to be using this jasmine and ochre. I'm going to use ochre and kind of blend these two colors together. I think these colors look really pretty together. Especially the more and more we layer, it'll kind of come to life, warm up a little bit. I really like this female bird. I think the colors are so pretty. So let me know what other art projects you have in mind for the summer. Maybe it's not drawing, maybe it's painting or doing crafty things like embroidering or crocheting. I think it's always fun when a new season starts to kind of try something you don't normally do, whether that's recipes or a new craft, because I love in the fall and winter, once the weather kind of cools down and everybody stays at home, I love getting into cross stitching and trying some new recipes. And it's easier to make time for things sometimes in the summer. You know, there's no school and everybody's kind of in a relaxation mode, and it's kind of the same thing with winter. I think it's always a good time to try something new. And if that's a Grizaye kit, I'd love for you to try it. So I'm just still blending this in kind of a little bit lightly. Once I have my colors laid down, I tend to apply a lot more pressure as I go. Get this in more right here. I'm going to start applying some more pressure to get this shading done in here, this area. Now you're probably starting to see those lines that I created with the embossing tool. How it's a little bit faint, but you can still kind of see this texture in here. That would be really hard to recreate otherwise. So now I'm going to use lemon again and blend that together. Oh, I'm glad it's relaxing to watch. Yeah, it looks really three-dimensional once you get all these tones down. You start to just focus on the shading. Thank you for your comment. So I want the head, the color to show up lightly, but I still want to do a little bit of shading here. Thank you. So I'm going to use a little bit more ochre and get this color in here. Applying heavier pressure. And I'm going to use some more terracotta too, and just go in here, layer this on top. You can really see these lines here. And if you use that tool, use a stylus tool at all, and you want to fill in those lines, you can just make sure that your pencil is really sharp, has a very sharp point on it, and just really try to fill that in. And then the more you go on top of it directly, you just have to make sure your pencil's really sharp, and that can kind of go away a bit. You can go back over that with white too. To just soften those lines a little bit so they're not too harsh. And then go back over the jasmine, fill that in. These little shadow areas, let's go over that. And just very lightly going on this highlight here. Now let's see. gonna take terracotta, get in here. And a little more ochre. I think it's time to sharpen these again. Flick upwards. Create that feathery texture. I'm really trying to shade under these wings. And that's going to make it look more three-dimensional. I want this bottom part to be pretty light. I'm just going to blend it up. And keep layering these colors, and it's starting to come together. So I'm gonna get in here with jasmine, start to fill in some of these highlights. So just as a base, I'm just going to lightly go over this, and then I will shade under each feather. Look closely at the reference. You can see a bit of shading in here. Sorry, my camera timed out there. Going to keep layering and applying more pressure at the top and the bottom, just like that. A little more terracotta, blend that down. This is really starting to come together. We've been doing this for about 40 minutes and this bird is really coming to life, I think. I'm going to use some black and I'm going to, again, of course, make sure it is nice and sharp. And just lightly start to cover it using light pressure. It's going to be very delicate with the eyes. This is like my favorite part of any drawing. I love the eyes. I love that little detail. And then I'll take a little bit of lemon and I'm going to sharpen my pencil again, because I definitely want to make sure that when I'm going around the eye that I don't have dull pencils. Alright, so now I'm going to lightly blend this out. Don't want these lines to be too harsh. go in this area and apply a bit more pigment here. I want this to be a brighter yellow. And then I'm going to use a bit of ochre, and you can see in the reference there's some color here. It's not white. And a lot of times when you apply that touch of color in the eyes, it can make it appear a lot more realistic. So I'm going to do that and then go back over with black. Go around that. Pretty good. And then we can always take white again and just brighten that up just a touch. I'm using a little bit of brown to blend that too. Let me see. I have a crumb brush. I like to have a little crumb brush with me. I do not have it with me right now. I'm just gonna knock out those pencil crumbs. But I will show you this other tool that is very handy for getting those sharp points. So this is a sandpaper sharpener. And you can just take your pencil and go like this. And this is a great, efficient way to get a sharp point with your colored pencil without wasting any. Because, you know, when you keep sharpening your pencil over and over again, you're wasting a lot of pencil. So this is a really nice way to get that point. You can get it as sharp as you want with minimal waste. So that's another little tip for you. Those sandpaper sharpeners are also available at Grizaye.com. So now I'm just going to very lightly keep shading this eye. I'm gonna go a little bit around here. Shade right under it. And then I can always go in with white, and that kind of brightens it up again. The most important thing is just to make sure you keep your pencils at as fine of a point as possible. Now I'm going to use lemon again. Apply that right in here. And this is a really great kit if you are practicing realism and really trying to improve your rendering skills for different subjects, because this pine cone is very detailed and that will help you color match and learn how to do all those things. I think we're getting pretty close to being done with this eye. I think I'm just going to apply a bit more white around here. I want this area to be a little bit lighter, so I'm going to use white, lemon, blend this all around. And you can see what I've done so far. You cannot see the Grizaye underneath. So I think that's a really good stopping point. I'm done with the eye and the face. So I think we will pick up another time and you guys can draw alongside me. I would love to have you join again. So thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. See you in the next one.